Hey everyone, my name is Jenny Ponzorek, and we are going to talk today about what to ask your supervisor before the end of the school year. All right, so a little bit about me, Jenny Ponzurek, school psychologist, been in this field for over 20 years, worked as a school psych, worked as an administrator. I have taught in school psych programs as well as college and university level. And nowadays, I spend a lot of my time providing virtual and in-person trainings on a variety of different topics related to the wonderful world of school psychology. And I also get to help support some of my local school districts with overflow assessment. I also have a small private practice, lots of fun things that I get to do. Now, one of the things that I love to do is help support newer school psychologists. And this started with my love of being a supervisor. As soon as I could be, I was that person who raised their hand and said, please, 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 I'd love a practicum student or an intern. And for many years when I worked in the school districts, I was a supervisor. And we get a lot of questions that I see over social media, a lot of questions that happen for people that are in their practicum year, maybe they're in their internship and they're about to graduate and move on to their first real job as a school psychologist. Congratulations. And a lot of times the question is like, let's take advantage of the fact that I still have a supervisor here. What kind of questions might be some good ones to ask before I leave this partnership here, right? Because many of you are going to be leaving and you might not have that quick connection with this person who has been working with you for many, many months this school year, who has watched you grow in this field. And so what kind of questions might be some good ones to ask? And so I came up with three. Let's start with the first one. What did they notice this year? Now, this is going to be more about what did they notice about you. It's going to be bigger than that. What did they notice what was going on at their school this year? I believe that school psychologists are in a really unique position at so many of their schools, that they get this really big view of what's going on with the school. They are looking at more than just what's going on at a certain grade level or in a certain academic department. They usually get to know a lot about what's going on at the school. And one of the things that I think can be really helpful is for any school psychologist to really kind of have that moment of pause sometime before they leave at the end of the school year and really just ask themselves, like, what did we notice this year? What did we notice about our referrals? What did we notice about the concerns that were brought up by teachers? Did we notice any patterns or trends with concerns that were brought up by parents? What did we notice from kids that were on my counseling caseload? Was there a theme or a couple of trends that we noticed there? With the evaluations that you participated in, what did you notice around the number? What did you notice about the percentage of kids that qualify? Just what did you notice? And I think it can be really interesting for those of you who are practicum or interns to think about what did you notice and then go talk to someone else who's in a job-alike kind of situation, another school psychologist, and ask, what did they notice, right? Now, some of you have some interesting kind of perspectives as an intern. I know that when I had interns, my interns were always at my school site with me. So we might not always be there on the same days, but we definitely took care of the same schools together. That was a little bit different than when I was an intern. When I was an intern, I actually was assigned my own school. My director of special ed was my supervisor at the time. But that noticing would have been a little bit different because I was at that school more regularly than my supervisor was. A little bit different than when I had interns and we were at those same school sites. So think about kind of that position that you were at for those of you who are interns this year. But again, what did we notice? What were some of the themes that we noticed this year, right? Always interesting to see how I'm reflecting what I've noticed and how is that similar or different than what other people noticed as well, right? So I think that's one great question to ask. What is another one? I love some good feedback. As an intern, as a practicum student, these are some of these last moments to really have someone else who's in a job alike kind of field with you to really see you in action, right? Most of the time, as a school psychologist, you're the only school psychologist at the school. You're the only school psychologist at the meeting. You're the only school psychologist in these situations, right? Not 100%, but many times. And so this is that opportunity to really take advantage of, gosh, someone who knows about this field, knows all the amazing possibilities of this field. What do they notice about where you're at in your journey in becoming an amazing school psychologist? Where might be some areas that you could do some growth in? And some of that could just be experience, right? You've only tested this many kids, you've only counseled this number of kids, right? Experience is going to help all of us grow. But also, sometimes in our practicum or internship experiences, we've not had the opportunity to experience all of the things, right? We might have only been at certain grade levels. We might have only been at a school where the role is a lot more of assessment. Maybe we didn't do as much counseling and consultation. So what are some of those feedback pieces from your supervisor about what are some areas that maybe we could do some improvement in, right? What might be some opportunities for next year if we wanted to go to some conferences? What kind of topics might be most useful based on what your supervisor knows is this huge world of school psychology and based on what your experience has been able to be, right? So I know that I always try to give my interns and practicum students a wide range of experiences, from counseling to consultation to attending meetings to evaluations, but I mainly worked at the elementary level, right? So those experiences are going to look really different at a high school level and a preschool level, right? So what could be some of those possibilities that are out there? Right? So what are some areas you could improve upon? Now, I know your supervisor is going to fill out like a bunch of forms for your university, but I'm talking about like that nice one-to-one conversation. Like, let's be real about our field. Let's be real about maybe if I already know where I'm going next year, right? What kind of district I'm going to be in, what kind of feedback, right, would be helpful. We all have areas that we need to grow in. I have areas, you have areas. We all have areas in need of growth because this field is so big. There's no way for us to ever feel like we're really amazing about everything, right? So what are some areas that would be some possible areas of growth? Last one here is to make sure we're feeling prepared, right? That's always a word that I love to use is what are ways that I can feel more prepared, right? Prepared for the day, prepared for this job, prepared for these meetings, right? And so as we're closing up the school year, I think it's really important to take some notes for all of you students out there. What do you notice about how your supervisor is closing down this year? Right? What did you notice about as we're approaching this end of the school year? What did you notice about some of the conversations? When did we start having conversations about wrapping things up? Right? But for a lot of you, when you reflect back on the beginning of this school year, right, you might not been in a place where you were observing as much about how your supervisor was kicking off the year. How are they organizing themselves? How are they communicating with people? Rarely do all of the people that we work with stay the same, right? The only thing that's constant is change, right? When I think about my experience early on in my career, I always had multiple school sites. So between 2 or 3 elementary schools, there was always a new special ed teacher or a new SLP or a new admin or a new director or a new something. And so how did we connect? How did we set up some meetings? How did we start building those relationships? When you think back to the beginning of the school year, you might have been just focused on what you were focusing on and might not have had that opportunity to kind of notice what was your supervisor doing to help kick off that school year so that they were feeling prepared. They were starting to build those different relationships. And so if you think back to the beginning of the year and you're like, I barely remember the beginning of the school year. I would take an opportunity, maybe go take your supervisor out to lunch and have that opportunity to just ask a couple of questions. What are some things they do to really feel really organized at the beginning of the school year, right? What are some ways that they kind of kick off the school year with their team? Whether that is the same team and we're just kind of reconnecting after the summer break or with new team members, right? Maybe you're the new team member. Maybe we have other new team members, right? It was pretty rare that I came back in the fall and like everyone stayed in their same space. Usually we had some changes. So how do we connect? When do I reach out? When do so-and-so, when do these people start coming back? When did the teachers start coming back? All of those different pieces there, right? What do we do before school, before the kids come back, right? What do we do in those first couple of days? Most of the time, we're not pulling kids for counseling on day one. We're usually not pulling kids for testing on day one, right? So how do we spend day one of school? I will tell you, for most of my years as an elementary school site, whatever elementary school needed me the most, I was usually hanging out in kindergarten. That was usually the request of my administrator was kindergarten needed the most support to help support the kids transition from their parents, get settled in their seats, get the parents to go home. And that's usually what I did on my first day, at least in the morning. That was kind of the expectation at that level. That's where the most help was needed, right? Different years, it was different things. I will say for many years, that was kind of my position. I love that. I truly, truly enjoyed that. So what are the expectations on the first day of school, right? How do we even ask? Who do we ask? What am I supposed to be doing on the first day of the school? How could I be of most help and support on this first day, in this first week, right? Before we get in our groove, right? What are some tips to start off their fall? Now, if you missed my last live last week I talked a little bit about summer boot camp. Summer boot camp is something I started. We're going into our fourth summer boot camp. I started this to help support those that are wanting help and support over the summer. I was noticing there was a lot of questions that came up from students or recent graduates in a lot of our Facebook groups and a lot of the social media questions about what should I be doing over the summer to help me prepare? And so I wanted to create a space for school psychologists to be able to ask some questions, to be able to get some answers about, gosh, what would I expect at the preschool level versus the high school level, right? What are some tips for supporting behavior? What are some supports for all of these different pieces? So we are doing another summer boot camp this summer. We haven't finalized all of the details. It does kick off on July 10th, and it's going to be 2 weeks. We have one session per day. All of the information about exactly the session titles, the topics, who's presenting, all of those types of things. We are ironing out all of those final details, and that's going to be available on my website, which is just my name, jennyponzurek.com. And we're going to have all the details there in just a couple of weeks. But until that time, I just want you to be thinking about, we have a couple of bonuses. So for people who want to get these bonuses, all you need to do is sign up for summer boot camp, like in the first week, in the first couple of weeks, so that you can get some of these bonuses. And one of the bonuses that we decided that we are going to provide is we have all of these great Q&As from last year, right? I sat down with the different team members and we got to ask questions about what are you doing to help prepare you to be a preschool psych, right? What are some things that I should be thinking about for organization purposes and things like that? We already have access to all those recordings. So for people who sign up early, they're going to get access to those recordings before even the start of our summer boot camp. They're going to get access. So if they already want to start getting into those things, and that way they can maybe ask some other questions during some of our Q&A time during summer boot camp, that they're able to do that. So if you are not already on our wait list, just head over to my website, which is just my name, Jenny Ponzurek, Ponzuric, jennyponzurek.com. And if you go up to the top of the page, it says resources. And when you click on that, the very first thing says something about summer boot camp wait list. All right. So feel free to get on the wait list. All you have to do is give me your name and your email address. We will send you an email the day registration opens so that if this is something that interests you, that you have access to this bonus. All right. Now, when you're on my website, jennyponzurek.com, if you have any other questions that are kind of swirling around, feel free on the homepage of our website. If you scroll down near the bottom of the page, there's a place to ask questions, and either myself or someone from my team will respond to your questions. All right. I will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.